Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I have learned as I have grown into the person that I am today. And I wanted to do a little bit of a different video today. I actually brought upstairs my meditation books. I'm not sure if I'm going to get to them or not because I have some topics written down. So I keep a list in my phone of video ideas for all of my channels, and I have 2 video topic ideas for this channel of things I've wanted to talk about since I was in Miami. And the first topic that I want to talk about, which is what I'm going to dedicate this video today to, is talking about the power to change your opinion about things. And it's something that I actually talk about on many of my channels. You know, I'll quote my best friend Tanya Jean, who said to me years ago, you know, my opinion can change at a moment's notice. I can change my opinion one moment, and I can change my opinion the next moment, and my opinion doesn't always have to stay the same, you know? And that's a huge thing. Like, that's freedom, right? And I think we live in a world where if you say something on such and such date, then you have to believe that for the next 30 years of your life. I think it's very dangerous, and it's kind of an older generation mindset, right? You know? And I think that part of the problem with that is that when we start having new opinions, or we become educated in a way, or hear people's different life experiences, like often the way that my opinion changes about things is when whatever the topic could be, or it could even be about a TV show, you know, like maybe I said I hated this TV show and somebody would say, you know, whatever. Like I was talking the other day, yesterday or the day before about, you know, Beyonce's new album, and somebody on my drama video commented and they said, you need to look into the background of why she made that album and whatever, and it'll mean a little bit more to you. And I thought, oh, that's an interesting point of view. Like nobody has said that to me yet, right? And so I was like, that's one of the things I have on my list for today, is that I want to look into the background of Beyonce's, you know, Cowboy Carter album and how she came up with this idea and why she did it and things like that, because I want to educate myself further. I want to understand why those decisions were important to her, and my opinion might change, you know, and after I read the articles and I educate myself, I might be like, wow, this is a really powerful, you know, album. Right now, where I stand on is, I've listened to the album, I think 2 or 3 songs are pretty good, but other than that, I don't think it's unbelievable. I'm not somebody like with music that has to know the background story to why the album was made and all that kind of stuff for it to mean something to me, but maybe in this situation I do. Maybe I need to better educate myself. I'm totally open to that, you know, and I think, you know, back in the day, I used to say this a lot in my videos, to remain teachable, and it was actually something that was, you know, even used as like a joke towards me and stuff like that, which I get. But, you know, like the idea of remaining teachable to me is never being closed-minded to the fact that somebody out there might have a life experience that you've never witnessed, or a point of view that you don't know or aren't aware of, right? And so to remain open to that is to always be open to remaining teachable, to realizing that maybe the position or the opinion that you hold today is something that could change in 5 minutes from now or tomorrow or whatever. I've literally, about all kinds of things in my life, all kinds of opinions, or all kinds of issues, my opinion has changed in a moment's notice. And sometimes it's changed back, you know? For example, in my youth, I don't really deal with this so much today, because first, I don't have that many friends and whatever. But, you know, back in the day when, you know, I had a lot of like friends and drama in the friend groups and stuff, I can remember like if 2 of my friends were arguing, I talked to one friend and they would say, you know, this is what happened. I'd be like, oh, that's horrible. And why, how did they ever do that to you? And then I talked to the other friend and then I'd be like, oh my God, now I see your side of it. Like, I don't understand this. You know, what I realized was those 2 people needed to be talking together. I needed to stay out of it, you know? But it's a really powerful thing to allow yourself the freedom to change your mind. I think we live in a world where that's not something that's very much allowed. Like once you state your stance on something, it's so easy just to come out and say, yeah, I did feel that way. I don't today. I changed my mind, right? And my opinion changed. I heard some other sides of the story. I re-educated myself. And today I don't feel the same way that I did yesterday about that. That's a really human response, you know? Many of us are going to learn things throughout our entire day that are going to change us. I can remember watching the movie years ago. It's one of my favorite movies, Texasville, which is the sequel to the Last Picture Show. And there's a scene in it with Annie Potts, and I think it's Jeff Daniels who plays her husband. No, it's not Jeff Daniels. I can't remember who it is. But anyway, she is laying in bed, and he walks into her room, and they're like married, and he says, something's different about you today. And she says, women change all the time. We change minute to minute, and you don't even realize that because we're so constantly changing and evolving. I think that's true of all people, honestly. I think we're all constantly changing and evolving, right? But it's almost like used as a fault against us that we're not allowed to change our minds or change our opinions, when that's a huge human freedom, that we can change our minds whenever we want to, you know? And just to give you kind of like a small example on like a corny level, this is an example that I used. I can remember, like when I was growing up, I loved my mom's chili, you know? And today I only eat vegetarian chili because I'm a vegetarian, but I loved my mom's chili back in the day, and she would make it, it was very, you know, soupy, and she would make it with like beans and ground beef and all that kind of stuff in a Chilio packet, and then she would put like long string spaghetti in it. And that was how I grew up eating chili. And I can remember when I first started going over to other people's houses and they would have like macaroni instead of the spaghetti, it was so bizarre to me. I was like, this is not how you eat chili. This is not the right way to eat chili. Chili should have spaghetti in it. And I can remember that, you know, and like all this kind of stuff. When people wouldn't have crackers, they'd have like tortilla chips. I'd just be like, this is so weird. It was almost kind of like I couldn't get behind it, right? And I think that that's a huge wall that we hold up culturally, you know? It's like, I don't believe that you have to travel the world to become a more cultural person. As, you know, Ann Tyler, the author, said, you can be an armchair traveler. And you can educate yourself by watching TV shows and reading books, trying new foods, trying new things. You don't have to travel around the world to do that. Many of us don't have that opportunity, right? And so I can remember, like, going to, like, I think it was my cousin Caroline first that had, like, macaroni, sour cream, cheese. I was like, this is not chili. Like, this is not my mom's chili. Well, flash forward years later, Alex, my husband, his mom wanted to have us over for chili dinner one fall, right? And so we go over there, and she's got this rice cooker next to her pot of chili. Pot of chili looked very much like my mom's pot of chili, minus the spaghetti in it, right? And so I'm like looking around, and everybody's like putting rice in a bowl and pouring the chili over it. And I was like, what is going on here? Like, this is so bizarre to me, right? Like, chili on rice. And I can remember, like, and she always makes me vegetarian chili, and I can remember I was like, this is so weird, like, right? Like, and I've since mentioned this in several videos, and people are like, oh, that's how we eat chili. I had never in my life ever, I thought it was like a made-up thing that she made up herself. I never in my life had heard of chili on rice. And so I was like, well, you know, let's give it a try, when in Rome, right? And so I tried it, and I loved it, and I absolutely loved it. And today, I love chili on rice, and it's not something that I ever thought that I would like, but I tried it, and my opinion changed, my mind changed on that, right? I think often when people change their minds or they change their opinions, it makes us uncomfortable because we know people in our lives by their opinions, by their stances. And so when they change their mind or they change their opinion, it's almost like, I don't know you. Who are you? I don't know you today, right? I can remember, like, as I got older, well, I mean, 51 now, but I can say, like, when I, like, hit 30, I was 35 turning 36 when my mom passed away. So when I was about 30, I can remember, especially with my mom, because my mom was sober, and so my mom started having, like, a lot of different beliefs about things, and I can remember she read this book, and I think the book was called Living Buddha, Living Christ, and it was about the similarities between Buddha and Christ. My mother was a woman that was somebody of very strong faith. She had read a lot of, like, you know, Eastern literature and things like that, but she wasn't a big believer in Eastern religions, and she started educating herself a lot on Eastern religions and the similarities between them and Christianity, and my mother was a woman of very strong faith her entire life. But I'll never forget, she loved this book called Living Buddha, Living Christ, and it was about the similarities of the approaches of peace and love of Buddha and of Christ. And I can remember my mom and I talking about it, and it was just so bizarre to me. My mother, who her entire life, you know, and until she died, always was a woman of very strong Christian faith, that she was having all these beliefs, you know, that of Eastern religions and things like that, and was questioning a lot of things, right? And I remember my mom said something to me to the effect of, never get too old to ever question what you believe, you know, and always, you know, question authority and question the belief systems that are set out. That's the one thing that you have. And I can remember reading the Viktor Frankle book. My dad had me read it. I think it was the Viktor Frankle book years ago, As a Man Thinketh, and it was about, if I remember correctly, about his being in the concentration camps, and that, you know, every day they would march him and one of his friends or a family member, and, you know, to the chambers, and then he would live, and he survived. And I can remember in the book it talked about that you can take away my clothes, you can take away my hair, you can take away all this about me, but the one thing you can't take away is what I think. You can't take away what I believe, and that's freedom, and that's my power. And I can remember, you know, like reading that parts of that book years ago, and being so profoundly affected by that. That's the one thing that we have, you know, is that our minds, what we think about, what we believe in, our principles, our integrity, those things are what make us who we are. And we have the power to change those things whenever we want to as well. They don't always have to align. As I got older, like I said, like when I was around 30, my mom and my dad both started having different beliefs about different things, not just spiritual, religious things, but like world issues, you know, and how they looked at the world and things like that. And I can remember, like, it was very uncomfortable to me because how I thought them to be their entire life. You know, for example, this is gonna be kind of a strange example, but I've shared this a lot in videos. My mother was somebody that was ostracized when she was younger. I said this in a video because this is the words that my mom used, and somebody didn't like the word that I used. I said bigger breasted. That's what my mother would say. So I don't know what the appropriate word is to use. Somebody please educate me in the comment section below. But she developed very young, and she actually had boys looking in her room, and I share the story a lot. And her stepdad like took the rifle out, ran him off, and then the police came. When the police came, my mom was like 14 or 15 at the time, 13, 14 or 15. And the police asked her, this is in the 50s, they said, what kind of clothes do you wear to school to entice the boys so that they come and look in through your windows? They shamed my mom. They victim shamed her. My mom carried that with her entire life. And was very open with me and talking about, you know, like getting her, like I can remember when she saw it on Oprah and she went and got her, you know, appropriate bra size, and she was so thankful because it like took the pain off her back and stuff like that. But, you know, after my mom got sober, she was always somebody that would always wear like t-shirts like this, or she would always be very covered up, and she didn't want anybody looking at her breast and didn't want anybody looking at her cleavage. And I can remember when she got sober, it was about 6 months after that she started wearing a lot of V-neck t-shirts. And I said something to her one day about like, I don't think I've ever seen you in a V-neck t-shirt anymore. And she's like, if somebody wants to look at my cleavage today, she's like, they can look at my cleavage. I don't really care. She's like, I've got more important things to say that are up here, but if they're going to look at my cleavage, and that's just where they're going to look. She's like, but I'm going to be comfortable in my skin. I'm going to be comfortable in the clothes that I wear. I'm no longer going to try to pander to what somebody thinks that because my breasts are bigger than somebody else's that I should have to cover up. She's like, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm refusing to do that. And I can remember it was such a mindset change of how my mom was. It was freeing. My mom, once she got sober at 51, the age that I am now, it was like freeing to her. Like I started seeing her like look at the world in a different way, you know? She would always like, I can remember growing up and she'd say, we got to turn the music down because we're driving on this suburban street. She'd always say that. And as she got older, she'd always leave her music blasted up right as she drove into her garage. She didn't care, you know? And it's all those different things. And it can be anything from, you know, whatever your belief systems are, your opinions, but it's a powerful thing to allow ourselves to the freedom to change an opinion. And really, there shouldn't have to be any other explanation when somebody asks us, well, why did you change your opinion? Well, I did. I saw their things and I changed my mind. And I have that right. As a human being, I can change my mind whenever I want to, you know? And if my life experience or me talking to somebody about their life experience or me educating myself or me reading something changes my mind on something, then I have the absolute right to change my opinion at a moment's notice. Now, I don't love when people try to change my opinion in a very, you know, forceful kind of way. I'm more than willing to listen to what somebody has to tell me to educate me about something that I'm not aware of. I love to hear people's personal experiences of why they feel some way differently than I do, right? But I am not somebody that says, that loves when people come to me and they say like, well, this is how you should think because of this. I'm like, no, you need to back up. Like, this isn't gonna go that way. I think it's our thought and the things that we believe in and the things that are important to us, our principles and our belief systems, and our opinions, for that matter, are really what make us so entirely different and give us, you know, the freedom that we have. And the freedom also to change those opinions, those beliefs at a moment's notice and not really have to explain that to anybody. It's huge. It's a huge deal. So I wanted to share that with you because I was thinking about that while I was on my vacation. I saw something I can't even remember what it was. I think it was like a Housewives reunion or something. I was watching clips of it. And somebody said, well, you used to think that, but now you changed your mind. She said, uh-huh. I think it was on Atlanta. And they said, but you changed your mind. She goes, uh-huh. And they said, why'd you change your mind? She goes, because I did. And that's really all you need to say to anybody. Because I did. I changed my mind. And why or what for is really none of your business. I changed my mind. And that's a huge freedom. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section below. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.